and welcome to One Take CEO Interviews. I'm Dale Kirshner. Just a reminder that our discussion today is unedited and done in just one take. It's brought to you by Platinum Group, which for nearly 40 years has specialized in helping business leaders navigate through challenging times, ranging from selling their businesses, raising capital, and refinancing, to surviving tough financial setbacks, legal challenges, and crisis situations. Today's interview is with Aleesha Webb, Vice Chairman and President of Village Bank. Her second-generation family-owned community bank employs 69 people and has about $390 million in assets under management. Its three largest loan categories are C&I, owner-occupied real estate, and non-owner-occupied real estate. Village Bank is also a major SBA loan provider, and it has offices in Ramsey, Blaine, East Bethel, and St. Francis. Aleesha, welcome to One Take.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today.
I ask everybody kind of the same question at first, and that is, from your vantage point, given all the customers you have and all the different things that you've seen with them over the years, especially as a community bank, what are the best examples of what's going on out there today in terms of what's working well and what isn't working well for some of your customers?
That's a really good question, right? And it probably, some would say it depends on the industry, the experience in that industry, the management. And I always like to say, what did they do to prepare? And what did they do to prepare for the very best of times as well as the very worst of times? Today the economy, I think anyone that gives you a solid answer on where we're, on October 7th, 2020, probably doesn't have a very realistic view of what's going on today. I think with the upcoming election, I think with, COVID looming and hopefully a vaccination coming soon, I think of where prime's at. Are we in a recession? How long will that recession go on for? What's the next stimulus package going to look like? There's so many variables out there. So as a leader, as part of our leadership team at Village Bank, I always like to talk about what do we know and how can we help our customers, no matter if it's our neighbors trying to find a mortgage with a great rate, or it's, one of the businesses on Main Street that we're looking at SBA lending for. What do we know and how do we help them? And so today, I think the big, I would say the big piece is with rates being as low as they can, how do you wrap up some long-term financing? How do you make sure you get to stay in your house, for the next 30 years? How do you make sure you get that 5, 7, 10-year fixed financing on equipment, on a piece of real estate for your business? I think that's so important today for any kind of small business. Even, or just as important, I would also say that relationship with your banker, that relationship with your accountant, that relationship with your attorney, that relationship, heck, it might be your clergy, right? Like whatever those trusted resources that you have out there for your business, really sharing where you're at, sharing what your concerns are, making sure that management is aware of where you're at, and what some of those solutions are for what could potentially hit next. I don't necessarily think it's always bad either. I think there's a lot of opportunities in the market too, and how are you going to grab capital for those opportunities today too?
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Those are all really good things that people should keep in mind, just in general, for times as tough as these, especially with the uncertainty that we still have in front of us. But are there any examples that you could share in terms of one of your Main Street businesses that did something textbook appropriate?
Yeah.
Like, this is the way
Absolutely.
to do it right now. And then conversely, is there one that did it the opposite? Not naming names, but just can you give us those two opposite examples?
Absolutely. Well, the ones that aren't doing anything, I probably don't know because they probably got their head in the sand somewhere and aren't talking to us, right? So those are those, right? And, I'm concerned, especially if they're at above rate average or above average rates today. Why are they not coming in and asking for something better? Anyone that's doing that today, get in and go see your banker. Go find a good community bank, right? But the ones that are really being strategic and being diligent and thinking outside the box, I was in with a client that we've had on our books for well over a decade, and he's been very successful in investment real estate. And he owns 3 properties, all within, the rings of the suburbs. So doing really well still today, multi-tenant uses. And he mentioned to me that he had 2 businesses leave. One, because they were doing so well that they actually went out and financed their own single tenant building through an SBA loan. But then the other one, they left, they didn't need the space anymore. And so, ding dong, right in my head, I'm starting to think, okay, well, how's your cash flow affected? How are you going to get a lease today? How does that affect the appraisal? He's like, don't worry about it. He has gone out there and he's started storing. He started renting space for storage for people. So he's storing some boats in these spaces. He's taped down. Well, like, this is your 1/4 of the space. This is your 1/4 of the space. You can store your boat here, because he said, I don't want to tie them up for too long, and I want something that I can grab the keys for there, so they're not coming in and out of these properties. But he's getting great money for this. He's making more money doing cold store, storing these boats than he would be if he was going to release it in this market with probably a month to month, right? And so he's so innovative, and he's a gentleman in his 70s, right? But he didn't skip a beat. And so really proud of a guy like that. Another person that I do business with, and I am actually personal friends with as well. I just love to watch her grow her business. She's been in the black since day one, and I'm so proud of her. She's always had 2 levels to her business. The one level, utilized it well. She's always struggled with what she's going to do with the basement, because it doesn't have kind of that same vibe and the same sunlight and all that. And it does matter for her business model. And she just found out a way to lease it out to tutors. So all the kids that are staying home now, the moms are saying, yep, I can maybe tutor my kid on a Monday or Tuesday, but who's going to teach them algebra on a Thursday and Friday, right? And I need help with this. It's different than when we were in school. So she had someone come in, and they're renting out the whole basement. It's a separate entrance to the basement, so there's not an insurance issue or a liability issue there. And she's, utilizing the space well, and it's going to keep her in the black. And again, it's, a short-term solution. And so you just think about this, where you've got, this 70-plus-year-old man that's been in investment real estate forever, and this budding entrepreneur, woman that decided to be an entrepreneur in her 50s. And they've just, they're thinking outside the box, but their cash flow improved. They found a way to utilize what some would say is a pandemic, right? People or kids not in school, and they flipped it. And they said, how am I going to take this opportunity? And so those are 2, really nice examples of what people are doing to say, there's a silver lining to everything.
Yeah, so much of what we hear in these interviews is it's attitude. And it's really attitude and perspective. Absolutely. And those folks who see this as kind of the Bernstein Bears, bad stranger bear type of day, where everything you look at is negative, it seems to be harder for them to deal with these things. You also mentioned things that sound very community-like.
Absolutely.
In instances, they know people in the community who could benefit from these changes. How have you dealt with this situation as a leader? Situation too, even that's multidimensional. We have the health situation with COVID-19. We have the economic changes that we've already seen, and then we have the uncertainties that are coming up. How are you leading and keeping your people fired up during this strange time?
Thank you for asking. And I always appreciate when people bring up that really human side too, right? Because we might be well and things might be well in our lives, but as the president and vice chair at Village Bank, I can definitely say that it's about, the 79 employees we have today. It's about the community that we live in. It's about Main Street. It's about keeping these businesses there and people in their homes. And, I'm an extrovert. I love people. I love to talk. The biggest piece that I've found from the last probably 6 to 8 months here is really just sitting back and listening over and over to people's stories. I've been very surprised. People I thought would be affected are like, hey, we got this, right? And others that I thought would maybe kind of enjoy the time away from the office or some of this quiet time are really missing each other. And they're missing, even seeing people walk up and down the hallways as freely as they used to. So I think there's a real big component of understanding that everyone, we might show up in the office or show up to our church or our community shiny and pretty and everything. But at the end of the day, people have their own struggles at home. They've got their own things going on. And so really creating an atmosphere where people feel like they can talk and we're going to listen and we're going to find a good solution for them. And that they're in a safe environment. I think that's been so important. Knock on wood, our team, the village knocked it out of the park with just making sure that we put our teams first and their families first, while not skipping a beat and helping the community during these challenging times. So I've really appreciated that. I've appreciated really just the honest conversations we've been able to have with our customers around what the opportunities have been. And I think, at Village Bank, we're big on our village values, right? We're villagers, we're a village bank, and we've got our village values. And so what we did, and we've used this internally as well as externally, we've said, what do we think the recovery is going to look like, and where do we want to be with this? So we created a recovery that looks something like a W. For us, it's 2 V's, it's our village values. And we said that we're really going to both feed in, and we're going to continue to invest heavily in the SBA program, and then really heavily in our virtual village. And how do we do everything we do today, whether it's Zoom, deposits, loans, anything our clients might need, how can we virtually do those same things with them if we can't come together, or when the next pandemic happens, right? And so we've heavily, we've shared these virtual values, and we shared this W with our clients as well, to say that SBA program is great right now. SBA programs where I can give you lower rates, I can fix, I can long-term rates that are going to be good solutions for you and your family right now. And that capital might be, quite frankly, Dale, to get through what's going on right now if you're a restaurant or if you're a hotel. Now, the capital also might be if you're a machine shop or you're a manufacturer and you're on fire and can't keep up with whatever the medical industry right now, right? You've got 3 shifts going and you can't keep up. So I think we've really dove into that. We've also really dove into mortgage and how can we continue to supply our neighborhoods with those 30-year fixed rates that everyone's talking about. And then, obviously sell those off of our books. But I think that the communication piece and the really listening to what the market needs today and being prepared to be able to react to that has really been our secret sauce in 2020.
Sure. And we're running short on time, and there are so many things I want to ask you still. One of those is exposure. So, you read different things and how things may go in the next 2 quarters. There are extremes in terms of what could happen. How are you looking at things when it comes to making sure that folks who come in today have the assets they have the staying power they do, they have the cash flows they do, but how you bank on that literally when things change so much in the next 2 quarters?
Well, I think today, this is what's great. Fed talks about it all the time. They continue to pour liquidity into the market. They're doing that through these $600 paychecks for unemployed people. They're doing it through low rates with mortgages. But the main way that they do it for a bank is they come out with these SBA programs, because that's how they get their guarantee in there. They do 100% guarantees. They limit the fees and they pour liquidity back in. PPP was a perfect example of it, right? I think we did over, I think we did over 650. It was just, or 65 million in loans. Crazy number for a bank. But I think for a bank to have confidence to continue to lend that into the market, to put that capital into the market, you got to have the right values, got to be a community bank and believe in the people you live around, right? But you've got to be able to have that government backing. That's big. But then, it really goes off of, Dale, to be honest with you, where do we see the market going? Like, if we know that we've got a machine shop that is, working for Honeywell, working for 3M, making parts for mail, right? Like, we believe in that. We know what's happening, right? We're going to look at what's gone on across the world globally, and we're going to say, no matter who gets elected in the next month, we're going to assume that there's got to be some kind of tax benefit down the road for people that are manufacturing in the United States, right? I mean, I guess to that point, we also look to all the industry experts out there. You know, I never mind having these conversations with people like you, Dale, people that are engineers and are telling us what they're hearing from their trade experts. And we talk about that, we gather that information. And then, you know, go back to history. I don't think the world's going to ever look like it did 5 or 10 years ago, but I also know that we learn good lessons, right? We know where to put our money. We know who we should stick with, and not to maybe finance 100% of anything, right? That might not be the best idea for anyone right now.
So I also wanted to ask you, how have you been dealing with all this as an individual? You know, I think that sounds like there's a lot of success to everything you've been doing, but I know that doesn't necessarily in any way, shape, or form mean that it's been easy. And so how have you dealt with the stress the last several months?
Well, thank you for asking. That's kind of you. It's so interesting. The things that stress me out are never the things that most people think would stress me out. I actually have appreciated the time where I can't go anywhere because I get to be with my children and my husband, and I'm very blessed to have a really strong family and friends. What I would say is when I see our retail team struggling with having to be at the bank, we had one employee that had COVID, and I saw people struggle. They were worried about their families. And that was the part that, you know, as a smart woman, I can fix a lot. I can't fix some of that stuff. And that was the part that was really hard for me. I think that's the soft side of business. And that's the soft side of culture, that if you lose that, if it ever doesn't shake you a little, you're not a good president. You shouldn't lead people that you need to be shaken sometimes. You need to not be able to fix things and really care. That's the stuff that will get to me. Sure that we're hitting budget, we're making great money, our reserves are full, and we know where our portfolio is at, are all important to me, not for what people think. So, you know, we make more money. It's for benefits, keeping villagers employed, and continuing to do our message and our mission as a community bank, which is to support the entrepreneur. And that's not just Talkdale. Like, that's important stuff to me.
No, I understand. And last question is there a question I should have asked you that I didn't ask?
Is there one? Is there a question? No, you do a really nice job, actually. You ask me questions that I actually have to really think and pause about, right? I appreciate your questions around the security of financing the community, because I know a lot of banks have backed up. I know a lot of big banks backed up when quite frankly, entrepreneurs needed them the most. And it's tough conversations sometimes saying, no, this is our job, guys. Like, this is when we show up. But those are important conversations, and having resources like we have with you, having resources like we have in the community, especially in the Twin Cities, is just so important. So I appreciate you really digging in on some of that, Dale.
Well, thanks. Thank you, Aleesha, and really appreciate your joining us today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. I want to thank our sponsor, the Platinum Group, which for 40 years has helped companies during turbulent times such as these. If your company can use some advice or just a second opinion, you can learn more about the Platinum Group at theplatinumgrp.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We'll see you next time on One Take.